So today we're going to create some bat masses that look a little more like buildings, and we're going to load them into our project environment, and we're going to use them to create floors, walls, roofs, and so this is just giving you a little more insight into how the massing environment is now going to get incorporated into the project environment. And so all those shapes and stuff that we had you make wasn't for nothing. If you're wondering what the heck am I making all these shapes for, it's so you can make really cool, crazy looking buildings and then apply curtain panels and you know, brick walls and all, you know, a layered wall that you build up, you know, to the faces of these masses. So with that, I was trying to build earlier before class started something a little more complex, but we're just gonna stick with something a little more simple, where we're just gonna create two circles and create a void, an extrusion out of them, and then some type of rectangular building. Maybe we'll play a little bit with some of these edges, pushing and pulling them so it's not just so rectilinear. Let's go ahead and open up a new conceptual mass environment. So we're going to go down to new conceptual mass, open up conceptual mass. And by the way, what we make today will be the in-class assignment 3, and it is not due tonight but due Sunday. So you have some time still to work on your assignment 1 that's due tonight at 11:59. Okay, so what do we want to do first? You want to draw the rectilinear one or the circular one first? Ryan's calling out for the circle. Nobody else seems to care. So first, let's get another floor plan view. So we're in our elevation view, and we're going to copy our level 1. So we have a level 2 and a level 3, and let's just make level 2 40 feet. That'll give us like 4 stories roughly, and 40 plus 60 is 100 feet, so that'll get us a few more stories. And the way I did that was I highlighted it, selected level 1 with the control key down, and the little plus sign, you're able to click and drag a new level. Go back to level 1, and I'm going to draw this circle at my center point here, and I'm not really worried about this dimension at this point because, again, we can make this a parameter. I'm going to add a parameter and just maybe call it the base for now, with the B. Okay. And I don't have my level 3 up here, so I'm going to go to my View tab and select Floor Plans and highlight both level 2 and level 3. And now I've got my levels here in my project browser.
How'd you do that?
Under the View tab, there's something that's there's Floor Plans. And so if you select that, you should see your floor plans that aren't in your project browser come up, and you can select them. you haven't created any additional floor reference lines, they won't show up until you create additional floor reference lines. So we're on level 3, and since we know that this is the center point for that circle, I'm going to go ahead and create an additional one here. And again, I'm going to create a parameter for that. Whoops, I want to add a new one. Call it, I don't know, T for top. And so we've got in our 3D view 2 circles. They're not reference lines, they're model lines at the moment. So I'm going to go over to my properties and make them reference lines. And then I'm just going to maybe reduce the size of these because the diameter is pretty big. Let's try more like 25 feet and maybe 35 feet. Maybe do that the other way. Make it. Yeah, that looks a little better. So the top is going to be 25-foot radius and the bottom is 35-foot radius. And I think in the top view here, so you can rotate to a top view and 3D view, I'm just going to left click and drag. That'll only select the lines that you want to select. If you right click and drag, it'll select everything. So I'm just going to select those, and I'm going to move them off the center point at the moment, and I'm going to select the top, which is our smaller radius, and just going to like move him off to the side maybe 15 feet or so. So we don't have just a really straight form, but when we create this, it'll be a little, different form, like a swooping form of some sort. So we can rotate back now to kind of more of a axonometric view and select both of those, and we're going to create a solid form out of them. You can see that shape is a little What's that? Quit talking then. And I don't know why, but I'm not like super happy with that shape. So I'm going to dissolve it. And I'm going to go to this level 2. And just for the fun of it, we're going to throw one more shape in there. So we can pick the center of our circle here. And if I get my proper drawing tool here, let's go ahead and select that and make it a parameter as well. And maybe that's more like the middle. Say okay. And let's go back into 3D to our top view so we can see all three of these. And maybe this one, the center midpoint circle that we just made, maybe that one comes over this way. I don't know, 15 feet. Let's see what that does. We can select all three of these. That'll be a more funky shape. And apply the form to that. How's everybody doing with this so far? It's some blank stares. Let's take about 5 minutes to get everybody on board.
I know. Oh. Feel my circles great. Perfect. Thank you. That was the goal.
Anybody else?
Alright, so properties, dialogue, so let's go to our new tab. Looks like they are shattering reference.
Right in there.
How do you change it to a reference line?
Oh, okay, so, right now, it's what you want, which is the camera view.
No, they're not reduced.
I would recommend using that view because you can't do it with camera view. So if you click on the 3D one, that gives you an axonometric view and allows you.
Okay, so go to your 3D.
So, alright.
Put this one. And then also draw a level first. Yeah, so you're just gonna draw.
So my drawing ones are on model ones.
So in the properties here, you have what's called, is this a reference line? And you can click that, and it makes them reference lines.
Okay.
And vice versa. So if you want to uncheck it, they become model lines.
And what is the dimensions?
Let's see, first one, 35 feet, the middle one, I didn't specify it, but it's like 23. I would just make them parameters first and then worry about changing that, because the reason why we made it parameters is that now that this is a form, we can start flexing it in different ways. So, make each one of those guys
Yeah.
So just click that guy, and then you'll want. Now that we've got one selected. No, not particularly. As long as you keep the shape.
You'll do better with reference lines.
And you can do it kind of in 3D too, so you're not like smashed on top of each other. So you have them all three reference lines? Yeah. Okay. So you can select all three of those forms and create a form. You don't want to select the dimensions, so you have to, if you do that, you have to go ahead and create a form, and then you can now go back into your family parameters and start to change those, like change the base to 35 feet.
Move it. Go ahead.
I think you have to do this with the very first.
Well, they were selected as they weren't
I'm not getting any of the. Oh. Okay, so we're in a view one, which is.
No, go ahead.
And your middle one's just like super cute.
And I was deleting the camera. Get in the habit of reading. You don't have any. And that's. Sorry. We have a square again.
It's not really solid.
Yeah. So let's go back to
On its way.
Kind of a pain in the butt. And you have to, but get a mouse wheel to really help a lot. Because the dimensions are selected as well. So just select the three circles and using the control. So you've got your dimension lines selected. So see how I've got one selected and this create form comes up, hit the control button. And now I can select. So I don't want to select the dimensions because they're actually building up. So if I select another dimension, that goes away. It's like we just reference. So if you ever get into that situation, you can also use the filter tree and say, I don't want the dimensions.
Oh, okay.
Does that make sense? Okay, so we all kind of have a similar shape to this. We can start to tab through and highlight just the sides of this shape. Oh, I forgot to use my control button. And we have this little command up here called divide surface. And what this allows us to do is divide those surfaces into kind of a grid, right? And we can manipulate that grid. We have it selected, and we can manipulate the layout. There's a U grid and a V grid. One's horizontal and one's vertical. But we can also start to apply patterns to it. So Similar to the wall tool, if you want a different wall, you go and select the down arrow here, and it allows you to create different patterns on the wall on that surface. Right, so you can start to see that that's a like a brick pattern or a custom panel pattern, and no pattern allows you to customize it a little bit, whereas I think these other patterns, well, they still let you customize it, but what we're going to do is kind of create a custom curtain panel that's going to be associated to the rectangle. And so when we come down here, when we load in a little family, it should show up down here, and so we can apply that to this surface. In order to do that, we need to create a new family. So if we go back to our view tab and go back to the recent files, we can open up a new family. And we want to grab curtain panel pattern based family. I'm going to go ahead and open that up. And basically we have a predefined reference lines here and some nodes. And all of these nodes have reference lines. So you can start to make a pretty complex family out of this by... That's your phone, Ryan.
Which one did you select?
Curtain panel pattern based.
And then which one after that?
That's it.
Oh, it's giving me
Whoops, let's go back here. So it should be right here at the top, curtain panel pattern based.
mine's a folder. Out of
You want to help him out with that. So this is the standard rectangle. If you select the blue grid, you'll notice you can change your grid pattern to maybe something more complex like an octagon, and it gives you the reference lines already defined. We're just going to stick with the rectangle for now. But just so you know, this is kind of how, if you want to build a space frame and apply it to a shape, this is how you do it, right? So you would build one piece of the space frame, and you can use any of these reference lines have reference planes associated with them, and every reference plane you can draw on that as long as you set that to be in your drawing plane. And so you can start to make some really cool, complex, 3D objects just right here, and then apply it. And I'll show you how to, a simple form will apply to that surface that we just made. But this is kind of the stepping stones to start making some really complex stuff. So we're just going to host one of these nerves on one of our reference lines here, and I'm just going to pick the midpoint of one of these reference lines, and then I'm going to make it always show the reference plane so it doesn't disappear. And we're going to draw actually model lines this time, not reference lines. We're going to use a model line, because what happens is the reference lines don't disappear, model lines do. And we're going to extrude or draw a sweep around this rectangle, and we want the line to disappear because we don't want to see it, right? So I'm just going to make a circular one And I'm gonna get it centered on my reference point. And down at the bottom of the screen here it says that's what I'm doing. And I'm just gonna create one that's pretty large, and I'm gonna make it a parameter. So I click the permanent dimension tool, and I'm gonna add a parameter and just call that R. And then I can change that to maybe 6 inches. Say OK. I'm going to select to make it a little bit easier for me to see this thing. I'm going to change my viewport scale to 1:1. Now I can grab that a little bit easier. And I'm also, with the control, going to select all of my reference planes, or lines rather. And I'm going to create a form. And that creates a mullion, basically, for this curtain panel. I'm going to use the graphic display wireframe so that I can see my reference lines, and I'm just going to grab them and I'm going to create another form, and I'm going to make a plane this time instead of an extrusion.
How'd you get into wireframe again?
In the graphics tab down here,
Okay.
there's a little button that allows you to switch from realistic to hidden wire to anything in between. Hidden wire. So yeah, I made that plane. And now I'm going to go back into hidden line, and you can see that that plane is there. And it's pretty difficult to grab it. So that's why, you know, you switch to wireframe if you want to like grab it.
How did you make the plane once you got into the wireframe?
Okay, so once you're in the wireframe, you can select the 4 reference lines. And they should just, you should only have to click once to select all 4 of them. And I just said create form. And it gives you an option to do an extrusion or a plane, and we want a plane. Now you can further set this up with some parameters. If you look here, when you select on the plane that we just made, there's materials in the instance properties of it. This little button here allows you to make a parameter for that. So we don't have to apply the material yet. We can just go ahead and make a parameter, so when we load it back into our massing environment and then load it into our project environment, we can use materials in our project environment to apply it to this thing. If that makes some sense. So I'm just going to call that glass. Say OK. If I spelled that right. And I'm going to select all of those by tabbing through until I get all of it highlighted. And I'm going to add a parameter to that too. And just do mullion. Say OK.
What do you call the first one?
Glass. So now that I have this created, there's a button here in your modify tab. I believe it's kind of in your create tab too. You can load this into a project, and I have multiple projects open. I'm going to guess that it's my Family 3 project. Hopefully you only have one project open. Yeah. Actually, let's go back and save that. Let's do a save as a family and name it custom curtain 1. Just say save. That way when I load it into my project, I'll be able to find it, hopefully. Or in my mass environment, sorry. So I can select a surface and you can see my custom curtain 1 is in here. It's going to think for a second, but it's basically applying that curtain panel that we just made to the mass itself. Select the other side and apply that as well. So we've got this guy and we've got our curtain panel attached to our object, and now we can load that. Do I have a, I don't even have a project open to load it into. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new project, architectural template, because I didn't create one previously. And this is fun. Alright, I'm going to name this, I'm going to do a save as and name it as, I don't know, conceptual mass. I can't spell.
See him.
1. Save it. Now I can load that into my project. Possibly. It's not liking me right now. There we go. And Revit says, oh, you don't have your show mass tool on, so we're going to go ahead and do that. We're going to turn it on for you so you can see this object. And notice, because it's not drawn, remember we moved it to the left a little bit? My center point is on the center point of the 2 reference lines, but we moved the entire mass to the left. So if you keep it on the center, it should be on the center of your mouse doodad. When you're in your conceptual mass environment, there should be, let me switch back to the view. That's the wrong one. I'm going to go ahead and close this.
You just named.
Yeah, trying to read, struggling with that. You just load into project.
I clicked that and it took me back to the pattern that we made.
So you should open up a dialog box here, and if you don't see a project 1, you have to open a new project. So go to File, New, project. And create an architectural template project. So I'm going to switch to my 3D view in my project. And switch to realistic. Probably wouldn't recommend it at the moment for you guys. I can select an individual panel by tabbing through and edit, and I can edit that type of panel, and you'll see the two parameters that we created for the panel, the glass and the mullion. Now I can go ahead and apply a material to that. And I'm just going to apply an aluminum basic material to it. Say OK. It'll think for a minute here. But what it's going to do, hopefully, is change that all the panels to being glass and aluminum. And it did. So now we can see through this thing. So if we highlight the conceptual mass, in our properties we have mass floors option, and we can edit that. Let's add a couple levels first, more than just level 1 and level 2. Let's go to our elevation view and let's copy up a bunch of levels. And I'm going to do a dimension to all of them so that I don't have to individually change them. I want them all to be equal. And I want them all to be 10 feet. I need one more level to get to the top. And we can edit this dimension that we made right here, edit witness lines, and add one more dimension to that. And just like creating the 3 or 4 levels in our conceptual mass, we can go to our View tab, go to Floor Plans, and select Floor Plans, and highlight all of them and create them. You'll have all your floor plans here in your project browser. Let's go back to our 3D view, select the mass, and now
Sorry. Making all the floors, how do you make them equal at the same time?
So in the elevation view, you can set a dimension up to each one of them, and then hit the EQ sign, and then dimension from the first floor to the second floor. And then highlight, select the second floor, and you can change that one dimension, and they should all be 10 feet.
What if it's not letting you, it's like giving you a predetermined, like it's measured them all, like it won't let me, it wants to do 11 and a half.
So the first step is to get them all set equal to each other. So define that first.
How do you make them equal?
See this EQ button? So after you play, I'll just go ahead and do it again. So I'm just going to grab my quick dimension tool here, the top and the quick select bar. I'm going to select all of my levels. And after they're selected, I've got my EQ button. I can press equals. And then it changes that dimension to just saying EQ. And I can place a dimension between my first floor and my second floor. Select my second floor, and this becomes a dimension that I can change. So okay, so we've got our levels, and they're set equal to each other, and they're set at about 10 feet. If we select the conceptual mass, we can start to mass floors. So if we edit this, you should see all the floors that you created. And we just want to select all of them and say OK. Now what that does is it creates a mass plane at those levels. So we don't have floors yet. We just have planes. So we have a tab that's called Massing in Sight. And if you notice, we have a tab here that says floors. So first you have to mass the floors out, and then you can use this tool. So it's basically asking me to pick the levels, and I can define whatever floor type I want. I could also edit my generic floor, duplicate, rename it as maybe class floor, and then I could edit that structure however I want, right? I'm going to just not edit it. It's not the purpose of this, but it's similar to a wall where you edit the layers of it, build it up. But I can start picking these floors. And I'm just going to pick everything but the top one. And I'm going to say create floors and select create floors. And if you look in there, they're there. And you have similar capabilities of the floor itself. You can start to modify it, adding more points, maybe changing the angle of it. But also, if we were to, I don't know if my parameters come into here, but let's see. Yeah, they do. So my dimension parameters, so if I select my mass, right, and I want to edit its parameters and say I want my base to be 45 feet and my top to be 25 feet. Hopefully I won't get 1,000 errors.
Isn't there a way, and I want a conceptual mass, but in a project you should be able to change this without moving the whole, it's just the pattern. And it processes faster. Right?
Take the mass off, you mean?
No, so it'll just show like the pattern of it, so it'll show basically the real one.
Wireframe?
He doesn't want to see the millions, but he wants
It's
them
just so
still
that
in the
as you're
project.
changing to see what dimension works best, it doesn't calculate it every single.
Yeah, so I don't you need to be in the conceptual mass tool to do that.
Yeah.
So I just changed the shape of this mass through those 3 parameters that we made on the circles. Notice my floors didn't change, but I can update, if I select on a floor, I can update the floor to fit the shape of the mass that I created. By using the update face tool. And you could select all of them, I believe, at once. So you're not doing it individually. And we can update all of them at once so that they start to fit this mass. So you can see you can start playing with different conceptual model masses with a pretty simple curtain panel or we could also apply a roof to this. So create, and even though we have curtain panel on there at the moment, you can start selecting sides of it and create a wall. And I'm going to undo that for now, but we can also turn the mass off, and we're left with our curtain panel system, the floors, and the roof. So for you want to upload this project environment to Blackboard under conceptual mass. I forget what I called it in there, but you'll see the name of it. And put your last name on it. We ran out of time, but I would like to show you how to create more of a rectilinear shape and then actually apply regular walls to it instead of a curtain panel system. So I'm going to put together another video and post it to the YouTube page so you guys can see that. And I'd like you to experiment with that a little bit. So basically you'll be creating 2 conceptual masses. One is a cylinder like this, and the other one will be more of a rectilinear shape with walls similar to this building here. So in this shape, we created a custom curtain panel, but you can also apply a curtain panel wall to the side of the mass by doing the same tool, creating picking the wall face and changing your wall type. I don't have the masses on. That could help. Show masses. But at any rate, see, now there's like a curtain panel instead of a generic wall. So I want you guys to create these two masses and apply walls just like we did to our one that we drew up today. And that'll be the in-class assignment 3, and it's due Sunday night. And I would also take a look at assignment 2. I will also post a video for that as well, because we didn't get to that either. But it's basically creating a stacked wall, which is everything we did in assignment 1, more or less, learning how to create a new wall type. So we basically create 2 wall types and then use the stacked wall to put them together so we can have 2 different wall types stacked on top of each other. So those are your 2 tasks for this weekend. Assignment 1's due tonight.
Clay, so, we get all the way through, create